Hi there, movie fans, and welcome to another edition of Movies. And first of all, Movies is now 1 year old, so thanks for all the views and support for the channel. And here we are, halfway through the year. So Richard and I are looking at the best and worst we've seen in the first 6 months of 2023. This is not a look at all the films that opened in 2023. It's anything that we have personally watched during the first half of this year. So it's our first half year review. So, what have you seen then, Rich? What's good?
Well, I think on reflection, I was just looking. We've got lists of the films that stood out and the films that didn't quite hit the mark, and it was interesting looking at the films. Perhaps if we deal with those that.
Let's start at the top and work down, maybe. Yeah.
Well, particularly the ones that I see that, in comparison of the two lists, the menu was something that ticked both boxes. I don't think there's much to explain here.
No, I think probably the menu is one of the best ones I've seen this year. Horror thriller with a bit of comedy, about fine dining and rich snobs getting their just desserts. So yeah, I'd say that's the top for me so far.
Yeah, it was an unusual film. I think with horror films, it's very difficult to try and find a unique script that's not been done before with some really interesting angles, and the menu really, it was both what's that, horror. It dipped into some bizarre sequences, but I think the acting performances, the mystery, the cinematography, it all really worked in a way I was quite surprised. I mean, the trailers seem to suggest it's a movie, it's a quirky movie involving a lot of foodies and foodie references. I'm not sure that it would have been immediately apparent how good that film was from the trailer. So I think it was definitely well worth a watch. Quite surprised.
Yeah, you have got the foodies in it, but yeah, it's, I think it was quite unique.
Yeah, I think anything, for me personally, anything with Ralph Fiennes in he elevates any movie he's in. He's that good an actor with that broader range. Clearly you can do thrillers, you can do drama, you can do comedy.
And it was all done in very few sets, really. I mean, you had the restaurant set, the arrival, the departure, bit outside. There wasn't really a huge budget in that sense, was there?
No.
Sets.
Sometimes you could imagine it being taken on the road in theatres.
Yeah, you could actually, yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, next, I mean, just briefly, I've got Glass Onion, which is a sequel to Knives Out, starring Daniel Craig. It's a comedy crime thriller. I think it's almost as good as the first one, Knives Out, just not quite. I don't know if you've seen that one, Rich.
I didn't see Glass Onion. I think I gave it the first 30 minutes. It struck me as that they're just trying to recreate the success of the first one, which I thought was a fantastic film. I think because it was following a similar pattern, I've not followed it up with trying to watch the entire thing from start to finish. So obviously it's a quality movie, but
and the great thing, of course, that you're watching it is Daniel Craig's accent. Always amusing.
You have to remind me, what was his accent?
Well, God knows. It's just a really.
He plays a southern.
It's a
southern,
it's
American Southern style detective.
Really bizarre for the character, but
yeah. Already, note to self: I really must follow that film up and give it a good watch. It is a quality production.
Next on your list is
Cocaine Bear. It's a trashy B-style movie. It's got actors who aren't necessarily A-list, but it just seemed to tick all of the right boxes at the time. It's funny as fuck, I thought, with enough gory horror. It's just a popcorn movie. It's just a laugh down with a group of mates.
It is. It's a cheap kind of B movie.
Yeah.
Funny horror, cheap horror.
Yeah. I keep saying not every movie has to be Schindler's List or well-meaning. Sometimes it's just, as somebody once explained to me, it's just bubblegum for the eyes. And I just thought it was a really cracking laugh.
Yeah,
some really interesting set pieces.
Yeah, good one. That was enjoyable, I must admit. On my list next, I've got Bank of Dave, which is basically a typical British comedy about an underdog fighting the establishment. You've seen it all before, and this is to open a bank in Burnley so he can loan all his mates money at reasonable rates. I mean, it is an underdog story, and it's very well done. I did laugh quite a lot with it.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed that film.
Typically British.
Yeah. I don't know whether how it would translate across the Atlantic or even on the continent. It's a very homely film. I did enjoy. I thought the soundtrack was fantastic.
Yeah, it was very good.
With the heavy rock references and having supposedly local lads, Def Leppard. Although didn't we point out that
they're actually from Sheffield?
Sheffield, not
Burnley.
Yeah,
not Burnley.
Yeah. No, that was a really enjoyable film. Yeah, I like that one. Next on my list, Champions, which was the Woody Harrelson comedy about a team of special needs basketball kids and his efforts to rehabilitate himself into the basketball hierarchy, but coming to terms with the
limitations,
the charges under his wing.
What did we say it was? It was a remake of was it Spanish? Was it
or French? Was
French?
It French water polo team?
Yeah, I can't remember now. Definitely a remake, anyway, of Championes, I think.
Yeah. It's a really sweet comedy. I must admit, I struggled to review it in the sense of use it, say, as an able-bodied movie reviewer trying to review something where the limitations around special needs basketball was quite obvious. I thought it was gently tackled in that movie.
Yeah, it was very sweet.
Yeah.
Next, I've taken the liberty of 3 films that were actually 2022, but I didn't get to watch them till 23. So, Emily the Criminal is a crime drama thriller with Aubrey Plaza in debt, and she gets pulled into the criminal world where she finds her true skills, really. I thought Aubrey Plaza was phenomenal in this. I think you can see how good she's becoming.
Yeah.
It's her best film to date, in my opinion.
I think yes, although it's a 2022 film, stumbled across it by accident and separately from you, and it was an extraordinary film. It's very difficult to find unusual scripts, and that certainly I can't recall a movie much like that where she is drawn into the criminal underworld and yet doesn't escape from it, almost embraces it and then carries it on at the end.
Yeah,
she finds set of sequences.
She finds her hidden self and how good she is at that that style of job, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
Also, it's made on a reasonably small budget, I would have thought, but it still looks really good.
Yeah, it's worth exploring how she may have done it if you're struggling for cash yourself.
So I've also
It's going
got
to be quite easy.
I've also got a film, Catherine, called Birdie, which quite surprised me. To me, this was a little bit of a sleeper hit. It was one I didn't really know much about. I found really good. It's got the girl from what's her name? I can't think what her name is.
You're on your own on this because I've not seen it.
There we go. Anyway, it's an adventure romp about a 14-year-old growing up in the 13th century. But although it's 13th century, it has more like modern speak to it. There's more modernisms, and also it's done very well. And Bella Ramsey is the girl in it, and she is really good. It's also, I found it very funny, extremely funny actually in places. That's well worth a watch.
Wasn't there a film a few years ago, was it Marie Antoinette,
Yeah.
where there was a modern slant on particularly using soundtracks, and the language is slightly different, and they may have done something similar with that film that's just been released, Emily Bronte.
Well, there was a TV series on recently called Gallows Pole
Yeah.
by Shane Meadows, and that also had modern vocabulary in it. Same as this. It's very modern speaking, but 13th century. You know, they're saying words that wouldn't have existed back then, really.
Yeah.
But done really well, and I did find it really funny. To me, that was my sleeper hit so far.
You'll do the last of your 2022.
Okay, my other 2022 one that I watched in 23 is a documentary that not many people will have seen, called A Bunch of Amateurs. And basically it's a documentary about the oldest film club in Britain, amateur film club, that's set in Bradford. And they're all getting old, and they're not in the best of health, and the building's falling down, and the rent's not paid. And it's a story of how they can try and continue with their film club, making their own little movies with no money. COVID hits, so that puts them in even more dire straits. You've seen this one, I think, yeah?
Yeah. I didn't actually. You've got to be a real movie aficionado to appreciate the film.
Well, it is a doc.
You have to love film, not just love stories. You got the making of film.
Yeah. I mean, to see all the old people trying to recreate certain scenes from films is really quite good. I mean, it's quite a bittersweet movie, really.
Yeah, the most touching aspect is that, given the age of most of the participants, you think that as they slowly pass away, then there will be nothing left of that club.
So the longest running amateur movie club in Britain is struggling to hang on and keep going.
Well, it didn't. I mean, part of the problem was attracting fresh blood, new members, and not people being very interested in it.
It was a good documentary, though.
Yeah,
enjoyable.
Well, next on my list was another horror style thriller, Megan. I think in the same way that Cocaine Bear touched loads of boxes, I thought this was it had a fairly, what was I say, unique. It wasn't unique at all. It was a bit like the Chucky horror movies, but there was enough thrills thrown into that movie for it to be a real standout. I thought the pace was faultless. It had enough about it to be riveted to the very end, and it's left it hanging that there's probably, because of the success, there's probably going to be a Megan 2.
And the Megan doll is scary as fuck.
Yeah,
Isn't it? Creepy.
Yeah.
Creepy probably is a better word.
yeah.
Very.
And I think that if it's worth catching any videos around how they made it, because they had animatronics involved, but they also had actresses playing the doll. You can't see the join between them, and there are certain sequences where the acting performance is quite extraordinary. Yeah, it's well worth a watch. I thought the central character, Megan, was fantastic.
Yeah, she was good, but that doll, man, that's creepy. Really creepy.
I'll go the last of the movies that were standout successes. I really enjoyed Emancipation. It was a Paramount release. It's a shame that it possibly was overshadowed by Will Smith's off-camera shenanigans at the Oscars and elsewhere. But he had his performance as the slave on the run was absolutely fantastic. It was it was up there with Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant, but really the style of the film was just extraordinary, mind-blowing.
Will Smith is possibly very underrated. Most people think of him as things like Men in Black and a little comedy, whereas he's actually a very accomplished actor. I mean, the movie where he was playing a boxer, he was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Was
just
it Ali?
possibly.
Yeah.
And there was the one last year where he's playing the Williams sisters' tennis father.
Yeah.
He was amazing in that.
Yeah.
But as you say, after his misdemeanor on stage,
I think that's possibly why the film has flown under most people's radars. But if you get an opportunity to watch it, the cinematography and the colour palette it uses is something I've never seen before. Occasionally you've noticed that you have those smatterings of green or some muted colour, but mostly it's in this really sharp contrast black and white. And I think there's a scene where he looks up in the sky and there's a flock of geese or so flying above him, and the way it's shot, it looks like stars in the sky. It's just an amazing watch.
So now we've got they were our good ones so far for the year, and now we've got our worst ones, which I think we'll start with a very controversial one, as it in Everything Everywhere All at Once, which obviously won several Oscars, including the best movie. To me, it's just a film of fight scenes all stuck together, with a mess in the middle that jumps around all over the place. It's just a garbled mess. Someone needed to edit it a bit to make it a little bit more cohesive. I mean, where do you stand on?
Yeah, no, I was disappointed because it was trailed as this groundbreaking movie, and in seeing it felt disjointed. It jumped around a bit. I mean, I know perhaps that's the point, and maybe the accusations are if you're a certain age, then you obviously
it's not made for me.
You can't keep up with, all the movies that you watch have to be linear in style, etc. But it felt. I enjoy Christopher Nolan films and they have timelines all over the place.
Yeah.
But this just seemed to be so in your face busy.
It looked really good, but when you broke it down, it was someone had a list of 10 fight scenes and they thought, how do we join them all together?
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like.
No,
Just not for me.
no. I can't get on
It's
with
not
it.
a film I'd ever watch again. I
Um,
found it tedious, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it was well travelled, and there was hints that it was going to be an Oscar winner, but on that basis alone, it was the decision was to watch it, but perhaps because it had become so elevated, the expectations were so high that it wasn't going to meet everybody's particular cinematic needs.
I mean, it won the best Oscar, but then the list of movies for best Oscar, I thought were quite poor anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll leave that one there.
Well, next one was next disappointment was Luther. I think again we're probably of the like mind here that Luther was Luther in name only,
Yep.
because it just seemed to be a film with him in it, as opposed to the environment that Luther usually operates in. I mean, I never saw many of the TV episodes
I've seen them all.
on which he was based, but it was clearly a decision to elevate him into these Hollywood style scripts and environments, and it just didn't seem right. He's a kind of like a down at heel kind of gumshoe style character, and they've got him trekking across Norwegian snowscapes.
Yeah, and he went on a ferry quicker than the helicopter got there.
Yeah.
But anyway, it seemed like it was just any old film script that they had, and they'll stick Idris Elba in it, and call it Luther. I mean, it had none of the tension or the darkness or suspense that the TV series got, and that's the best thing about it. And it's all missing from the movie.
It reminded me, those comedies where they're set in like Only Fools and Horses. I mean, this may mean nothing to an American audience, but where they decide to send them on holiday somewhere, they don't seem to work for me, because they're taken out of the environment that you're familiar with, and they're bunged into something completely unnatural.
Yeah. So the last bad one I've got is In the Court of the Crimson King, King Crimson at 50, which is a documentary. Now, I've seen that several people like this, and I love music documentaries, because you normally see stuff behind the scenes and you get to learn a lot, and you see all the stuff that you wouldn't normally see. This shows absolutely nothing not already known, and it's almost like a vanity project for Robert Fripp, and he's a producer, so he's probably pulling all the strings as to what he's probably scripted of what's going to be in it. It's not like a documentary done by some complete other person, not connected, that then starts digging and finding stuff. It's just a vanity project, and it was really poor. It's not for me.
I don't know.
You didn't watch that one, did you?
No, I didn't watch it.
It just
Don't have
music
any-
documentaries are normally really good because they delve deeper than anyone in the band would normally give you on the screen, and it goes deep, really deep. This just doesn't do anything, and it's all over the place. 1 minute there's someone talking to the camera, and they're showing you visuals of the set on stage in wherever, Canada, and then they're talking again. Then the next picture is a completely different country. It's just all over the place. It's just
How much
rubbish.
do you need to know the music of King Crimson to appreciate the film?
Well, the thing about good music documentaries is a good documentary of any subject, you don't even have to like the subject. I mean, I've seen ones on motor racing that I don't even like motor racing, but if they can pull you in and tell you loads of interesting things, they're worth watching. This just done nothing for me.
No. Robert Fripp, what should stick to making YouTube videos?
YouTube
with
videos
Toyah.
with Toyah, yeah. And your
Yeah, my last one was controversially. I wouldn't say that this was a bad film. I feel when we were compiling this list, this felt a little bit of a letdown. It should have been more than it was. The Woman King. It felt one-dimensional, rather bland. No real surprises. Just an action movie with Amazonian type women, but it didn't feel like there was any attempt to elevate the story. Very bland, that's the word. And I think there was so much potential for this to be something a lot more than it ultimately turned out to be. And I think this is one of those films where once you get pulled in by the trailers, and the trailers look fantastic for it, and yet you probably watched all of the best bits in the trailers.
I don't think this is a bad film. I think it's average. I think one of the main problems with it just plodded along with hardly any pace.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so flat. It should have been much better. I mean, it's not badly made, and it's quite watchable, but you know, I know I'm pushing the boat out. Again, I probably wouldn't ever watch that one again.
No,
It's not. In somebody else's hands, it could have been a lot better.
It was. So if you see the trailers, it's a full-on action movie. When it comes to watching the actual film itself, it feels like a bit flat, a bit disappointed. Maybe the expectations were higher, and there did seem to be a lot of opportunity to make this thing something far bigger than it was, which is a shame, a missed opportunity.
It was a missed opportunity, yeah.
I don't think it was. As I say, it wasn't.
The
a bad
story
film.
was quite reasonable, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
I think in the hands of someone else, it should have been much better.
yeah.
So that is our half-yearly review. Controversial in places, and anything else? Any footnotes? No.
No footnotes.
No.
What's it been like reviewing all of these movies? Sat in front of this camera, struggling with eyesight, and
That's been fun. 1 year old, the channel now, and please keep viewing. We do appreciate it. Thank you for watching.
and no cinema goers were killed in the making of this review.